Well, Kate, thank you so much for being here with me on the Entrepreneurial Success Podcast. Like I said, when you reached out to me, I was like, oh my gosh, we haven't spoken about this topic in a while. And I know it's a big one for so many. So why don't I hand over to you and you can introduce yourself to the audience?
Thank you very, very much. Yes, so hi everyone. My name is Kate Llewellyn. I am from the Content Consultancy and I offer a range of services to basically help people to create their own content, to do it themselves with a little bit more confidence, a little bit more purpose, a little bit more planning, and all those good things that come up for us when we are talking about our digital marketing.
I know. And like I said, it's a big thing for so many of us. And even if we are seasoned content creators, there are a couple of issues that we still have to go through, me included, but we'll cover those in a minute. Tell us a little bit, why did you decide to go into content creation and become a coach in content creation? What was that journey like for you?
Oh, it's been long and winding, again, probably like many people listening. So I started out actually in a career in academic publishing, so absolutely loved. I was a commissioning editor for books, and I thought, like we do, that's what I'll do for the rest of my life. Lovely little career plan there, no problem. And then, unfortunately, I was given the opportunity, is that the right word, to take redundancy when the local offices that I was working at moved from that lovely sort of 18 minutes down the road to more like 180 minutes commute. And I thought, okay, so I decided it was sort of serendipitous in some ways that I had two young children, and I thought I'm going to take the opportunity to do a bit of freelance work. And so I very much started in the content writing sphere. So I was doing things like social media, but also blogs and all that on behalf of sort of SMEs and sort of those slightly bigger small businesses. And that was brilliant. And I'd say it went very much from being kind of just a freelance job or just for a little bit of money through to me sort of owning the fact that maybe, oh, this is actually a business now. So that was absolutely lovely. And I honed so many skills and it really suited me, that love of writing, that love of learning, because things to do with like search engine optimization, the way we blog, even the way blogs developed, those kinds of things, the way websites developed, their functionality, etc. There was always something new to learn. And for me, that's, absolutely really exciting to do. And then, as probably with so many, again, the pandemic hit and I had a few clients that, bless them, just lost, they lost all of their income overnight. They weren't really sure what to do about their marketing at that stage because they effectively had nothing to offer. And rightly so, it was time for us to part ways. But they were still trying to do a lot of stuff then all of a sudden on their own. And, they were rightly so thinking, well, I still need to keep my hand in the marketing sort of side of things. But they didn't have the budgets any longer for me to do it for them. And so I decided that actually there was something in that. It was like, how can I help these people to still do it, but to do it themselves? And most importantly for me, do it effectively and do it without it becoming a real headache. Because, when you've outsourced it and someone else just takes care of it for you, again, if you've ever experienced that, it's really then difficult sometimes to take it back over yourself. And especially with digital marketing, things like to move on really, really quickly. So what you thought you knew is no longer the case. So it actually led me to set up my first membership. So I had a membership called the Content Club, and I happily ran that for 4 years alongside my content writing kind of retainers. And that was lovely. So I had a sort of an offering for those people that wanted to do it themselves and get the guidance, and I could get lots of people all in the room at the same time and do that. And I could also support people. But unfortunately, and this is like a big part of my sort of recent story, I had this feeling that for some people in my membership, I was letting them down. They would come to me, they would do the quarterly plans, they would write out all this content they were going to create, they'd be really clear on what they needed to do. But I would follow them on social media, I would, maybe be signed up to their mailing list, and the content just never appeared in front of me. And I was like, I felt like I'd really let these people down. I was like, what am I doing wrong? They're making the content, they know what they want to achieve, what's going on here? And I really delved into it and I found out that it was this word kept coming up, this confidence issue, this overthinking, this anxiety, this overwhelm that, they were quite happy to put together a beautiful plan, but implementing it, executing it was really, really difficult. And what surprised me, I think, was so often I thought it would come down to like a skill set, and I was like, that's fine, I can teach them how to do that Instagram reel, I can teach them how to write that blog. But it wasn't that. A lot of the time the content was in drafts, it was ready, it was, there, but that the pressure to hit publish, as I often say, was just too much, and it was easier to just not do it. And then when we
Yeah.
don't do it for a little while, it gets even, harder, and then it builds up, and then it does go from being a little while to quite a long while, and then it almost feels like you're back into sort of relaunching yourself, and that was, again, even more terrifying. So I've developed, literally in recent months, a few more services around this idea of content confidence, of real clarity around your strategy about what you want to do and why you want to do it, and making it much more personal. And so, I'm now doing some one-to-one services and group programs in this area too, to hopefully complement those other services that I offered before.
And I love how you brought it all together. I mean, it's a beautiful story because it shows that development that you've gone through. But I think the beauty here is also, as you were working with your clients through in the membership in particular, kind of seeing that, yes, it is not just about the skill sets, it's not just about the strategy, it is the confidence element as well. And we all have it. We all have it, even me included. There are times I'm sitting creating content and I'm just like, do I, don't I? And then I'm like, oh, I'll think about it. And then a week goes by, 2 weeks go by, and you're like, I'm going to leave it. If it hasn't felt like that yet, I'm going to leave it. So confidence does play a big role for so many of us. So let's talk about that a little bit. So I know for most people, they go like, just give me the strategy. Give me the strategy. I know what it is that I need to do. But as we are talking specifically about content confidence, there are some limiting beliefs in all of us when it comes to creating content, or at least hitting that publish button. And what are some of those limiting beliefs that you've come across, so that we can share it here and people go like, oh yeah, I haven't thought about it in that way?
Oh, sadly, there are so many. And actually, particularly women, aren't we brilliant at coming up with all of the reasons why, we don't deserve to have that voice to just say what we want, especially, say, on a social media post or whatever. So, the many limiting beliefs I hear is that, like, I've got nothing to say, and especially from the sort of lens of nothing original to say. And I think that's really, really sad, because what happens in so many people's worlds is that you are influenced by, what you see in your own news feed. Let's take the social media example, for example. Maybe you're within your own profession or within your own sector. And so, yes, you probably are reading a lot about the same things. But remember that for, when you're in business, your ideal client's news feed probably doesn't look anything like yours. So whether it's a concept or an idea, your ideal client has probably never come across it, because it's something that is from your professional world. It's, not from their professional world. And the other thing as well is that again, coming back to just confidence, but you're going to say it in a different way. It doesn't matter who we are. You're going to have your own experiences, your own lifestyle, your own values, your own motivations. So it's that, overcoming that when you think you've got nothing to say, it's never true, because you are your unique so the way that you're going to share it. And to be honest, I think the other thing to remind people about that particular limiting belief is that sometimes we can hear the same thing from two different people, and for some reason the one person totally resonates, the other person goes over our head, skips through, whatever it might be. So that's one of the big ones, is sort of that belief that you've got nothing original or new to say, because let's be honest, but isn't there sort of a saying about there's no such thing as an original idea? And isn't that lovely? It's just us building and and adding to the conversation, and rightly so. Give yourself permission to add to the conversation. So that's one of them. The other one is, I think, a lot around related to perfectionism, that we want, especially as a business owner, you want to present yourself, I sort of cringe slightly at the word, professional, to turn up, professionally. What does that even mean? But, it is that, isn't it? Is that locked into those two together, being sort of seen as professional, seen as knowledgeable, seen as expert, and therefore the fear of putting out something that might be quote unquote wrong, and so often that's not possible in many ways. You are maybe sharing an opinion, you are possibly actually sharing fact from your professional expertise, but this idea of just, what if I put out something wrong, what if there's a little mistake, what if it's interpreted wrongly even, which is it can happen, we know that. So that's another one. And again, I think it's a case of, if when you read your piece of content with that really calm, logical brain, if it is, let's say, good enough, I don't mind that. Good enough is, sometimes really great, especially when you're building your confidence. Then again, take that step forward, because all you're doing, and you gave a great example there, is if you create an amazing piece of content, which if I read it, I would say it's amazing, but you don't think it's amazing. But what you've done is you've just hidden it away. You've put, a friend once said to me that she has these great ideas and she might even type out, and then she sort of puts it down metaphorically and slowly backs away from it. You've done is wasted your beautiful time, actually probably creating something that was so lovely, and you've kept it hidden from the world.
Yeah.
We've lost out. Your ideal client has potentially lost out. That opportunity is missed for both of us as such.
Yeah. And isn't it interesting? Because as you were talking, I'm thinking, the majority of these limiting beliefs do come down to that one thing about how we are scared of being judged by other people.
Yes.
And I think it kind of encompasses it all, because if you put something out there, maybe you're not always consciously thinking about it, but in your subconscious, you're like, how are people going to think about it? How are they going to perceive it? Will people like me? Because we always want people to like us, of course. But it comes down to that thing that, it's one of the biggest fears we have, not just in content, but in everything we do in life, in business. It's about, how are we being perceived, and will people judge us?
Definitely, and unfortunately it is. It's not only sort of under a magnifying glass, I think, in kind of, especially that content where you are, at the end of, we put something out on social media, we don't know who's going to see it. It's not like it,
Yeah.
and it gets taken out of context quite easily in that scenario as well. We're worried enough about being judged maybe for the services we offer or a product we create, but at least we've got quite a lot of control over that. Sometimes our content doesn't feel like it's as such in our control, and you're absolutely right, and it's absolutely valid to feel that way. And that's why a lot of my work is actually around taking you almost, yes, we want to have a strategy, and we want to get consistent, we want to build up almost that habit of creating it, but actually a lot of it is about instilling a level of conviction that that actually sort of taking it really far. But if you had to fight for this point, if you had to really defend what you'd said, going, what, I'd defend that. And actually, like you said, thinking about it from other angles of life, if someone said to me, like, what do you think? A lot of us, our businesses are really important to us, and we would defend them, wouldn't we? We would, defend our work and have that conviction and belief, in what we offer. And, our content shouldn't be any different.
I know. And you mentioned something earlier, which is what I want to ask you as well, is, you mentioned about taking a little bit of control back, especially on platforms that we are not in control of, such as social media. Yes. So what would your advice be there? Obviously, we can't control everything, but we can control certain aspects. What would those be? And can you give us some examples of just making us feel a little bit sense of relief?
Yeah, absolutely. So there's kind of 3 areas to this. I hope I'll remember all 3 by the time I stop talking. So number 1 is, I think the first thing is genuinely think about, are you on the platforms that you want to be on? The kind of perfect trilogy, let's call it, is that you like being on a certain platform. It's sort of the right place for your business, and it is the right place for your ideal clients. And ideally, we want all 3 of those to align. But you know what? If they don't slightly, you are always the most important. So make sure you enjoy hanging out on, whether it's platforms, if you're writing a blog, if you're doing podcasting, make it things that you really enjoy, networking, whatever it is. Make sure, first of all, that they are. And if you don't enjoy a certain platform, then, again, not for the here, we could go all into it, but there are ways of going, do you not know, I'm going to stop doing that, and I'm going to focus on other areas. So first of all, permission completely to do that. Choose the platforms that you want to hang out on. Then within the platforms that hopefully you relatively like, The next bit is to take control of what you are consuming. So forget for a moment what you're putting out into the world. But I mentioned earlier about like your news feed. There's no laws around who you have to follow or have to see. And actually nearly all of the platforms these days, you can still connect with somebody or follow somebody and still sort of mute them within your news feed. And this can be really liberating. And one of the things I say to people is when they worry about this is that, oh, what if I miss something? Is I say to you, well, actually, if there is somebody that you worry about missing something, but you don't need to see their content constantly in your feed, just make a note. Make a note in your calendar, maybe once a month. Go and have a little look at their profile, check out what, their posts, their articles, whatever it might be. And there you go. You haven't missed anything. But again, you've taken back control. So that's the first thing. I mean, I love social media from an education point of view. So I love following like really inspirational, big influencers influencers in some cases. So, do you know what I mean? Really curate your newsfeed to be people that are interested in you. You don't have to follow a big one. You don't have to follow all your competitors. We can do competitor research. We don't have to have them in our newsfeed every day. So make sure, as I say, curate your newsfeed. And then the third thing is, it's hard to sort of explain, I suppose, but it is about just making content that is going to connect with your ideal client. Stop trying to be all things to all people. Stop worrying about, and I suppose this is a better way of summing it up actually, is create that content for your ideal client and then believe in the power of the sum of all of its parts. Because a lot of us go on a journey, right? So let's say you see a social media post of mine. You might then go and check out the profile that it was on. So let's say it's a LinkedIn profile. There's a link there, takes you to my website. You have a little look through my website and then you maybe book a call with me. Do you see what I mean? There's lots of different elements. So take that pressure off that one social media post or that one, and go, no, it's okay. I'm in control because not only have I got my posts, I've got my profile, I've got my website, I've got lots of other little ways that I'm going to attract those ideal clients and kind of, let go of the fact that who knows what the algorithm is going to do with that post that day. Who knows who's going to be looking, but believe, I suppose, slightly in the energy that if you put out a post in all that good energy, in all that kind of, feeling of attraction, it will find its way to the right person, or certainly something will that'll draw you, draw them to you.
I know. And I love all three elements that you mentioned there. I mean, the first one in particular, I say to people, of course, see where your clients are hanging out, your ideal clients, and then decide where they're hanging out. Do I like being on those platforms? Because if you don't, it's just you're just creating a chore for yourself. You're not going to enjoy it.
Yeah.
And then the second element, and forgive me, but I have mentioned this a few times already, but a mentor of mine said, use social media, don't be used by it.
Love that.
And I think it's beautiful, just what you said there, is curate the news feed. In particular for most of us, we kind of look at our competitors and what other people are doing. And how many times do you look at their posts and their content and you just feel so heavy? And you think, oh my gosh, maybe I should create what they're doing. Maybe I should say something along this line. And then you are just in this whirlwind of what should I do? So yes, curate your own newsfeed. You do not have to follow everybody. And I love the fact that we can do that. You do not have to just be a slave to the algorithm and just get fed whatever it is that it is feeding you. And then the last thing, I do wholeheartedly believe everything is energy. If you put a piece of content out there with the right energy, it will be received with that energy. So I am with you 100%. Those are some of the best ways we can take control, but also let go of what doesn't serve you.
Absolutely, it's freeing. One of my little activities that I do is sort of say, like, get into some kind of amazing energy before you write that post. Like whether it's dancing around, whether it's some deep breaths, whether it's having your favourite mug, and a cup of tea, and then write that post, especially the one that you've been putting off. There's something about that, and then also, like you just said, just sort of have that feeling of I'm just letting it go, and imagine in some ways that your content is like just a stream. It's just all trickling out there into the universe. The social media platform's going to do what it's going to do. You've done your bit, right? You've supplied the content. You've done that post. Just let it keep trickling out there. You've got, there are lots and lots of ways that you have enabled your ideal clients to connect with you. So Yes, let it go. And I think that is what we are influenced, funnily enough, by, like you've said, when you see a competitor and you think, oh, they're so amazing, or they're doing great things and I'm not. But I think it is their energy. They're just coming across in a really, and sometimes, there's possibly a fake it till you make it element of that. If you spoke to them and said, oh, your content's amazing, they'd probably straight go, oh, I don't feel like that every day. But they are somehow projecting to you that level of confidence that maybe you don't
Exactly.
feel.
Yeah, exactly. But I think this also comes back to one of the other elements. When it comes to us creating our content with that energy, we also need to find our own voices, because we cannot and should not, and don't ever think about it, copying and pasting what other people are saying, because they are using their own voices and you need to find your voice. What can you share here with everybody listening? Because I know this is a tricky one, because we always think, where the heck do I start in finding my voice?
Yeah. So I think the first thing to say is, I think you have your own voice. So first of all, a little bit of a moment of trust that you do, and self-belief that the way you write, the way you speak, that's you. So I think actually where we often have a voice, but we lose it in the dilution,
Yeah.
in the over editing, in even the overthinking. How many times we come up with a great piece of content, but by the time we commit it to paper or to the page, by the time we've typed it up. So actually there's something in that, and I do sort of an experiment with some people of going like, I dare you sort of thing. I dare you to write that post and hit publish. You're not allowed to even read it back through. You can edit it afterwards, if you find a typo, but that's it. So I think there's an element of that. The other thing I hope it's okay to pick up on right now is the use of AI with this as
Mhm.
well. Now,
Yeah.
I am not averse to using AI to help you with content ideas, to help you, but just be really, really mindful of that as well. Because I think, that is the quickest way to lose your voice. If you are copying and pasting, let alone from someone else, even straight from AI. And one of the things that I'm really noticing, and there's been some research into this, is that people aren't even remembering what they wrote, because you copy and paste it, you stick it out. Don't get me wrong, I'm sure you read it through and made sure it made sense and it wasn't anything inaccurate, but people aren't like connected with it in the same
Yeah.
way. So again, if you can, if you're thinking about, first of all, lots of work into training and thinking about, how that the AI could help you, certainly, and awareness of what it can do. But if you can, just, I don't know, have a certain element of self-belief, I think. Take ideas and then, as I say, just write them up in a way that feels very, very natural to you.
Yeah.
Actually, that's a good word. Think about how natural it feels. If anything feels sticky, if anything just doesn't feel quite on point, don't ignore that. Go
Yeah.
back to what feels really natural.
And I love that natural, because the best advice somebody gave me is write as you speak. And I think that is so beautiful. And hey, me being South African, English, my second language, doesn't always come across the same way. But that was one of the best pieces of advice I got, because when I started writing as I speak, it became more natural. And I find that my message was actually hitting the way through. People were actually resonating with it a lot more. And on the topic of AI, interestingly enough, it was about a couple of months ago, actually. I spoke to somebody who is an AI expert. And even though AI is going to be with us, it's going to be still evolving, it's always going to be there. But the interesting part is, because we are getting more familiar with AI, in particular in content, we can now see where things have been written using AI tools. And I think the beautiful thing here is to understand that people will always opt in for the personal, the connection, the authentic, and people are going to start veering away from, oh, this is AI created. It doesn't interest me. I want the person. I want the natural. So I think the dynamics are changing a little bit. Yes, AI is brilliant in so many aspects, but when it comes to your content, you need to have your own voice, because people pick up on it very quickly these days.
Do you know what? There's two things I know. First of all, isn't it funny that, coming from a publishing background, and I used to work in the Oxford English Dictionary, it's all about, and if I ever had a typo in a post, I used to feel sick. I'd feel, oh, this is awful, like a terrible reflection on me as a copywriter. Isn't it ironic that now I sometimes, if I spot a typo, I think, oh, well, at least no one will think it's AI. It's lovely. And it's like you said, it's human. It's we make slight mistakes. The turns of phrase are not quite there, but that's okay. So I think you're right. There is a lovely thing in really owning that whole writing as you speak. And actually, one little top tip I could quickly give is that if you are struggling to get something out, especially, with writing, I often say to people is pick up your phone or even jump on a Zoom call and hit record and start talking it out and keep talking. Sort of almost, if you want, set a 5-minute timer and just keep talking about the point or the service or the offer, whatever it was you were trying to do. Because it's so magical how often when we keep talking, the kind of like the nugget comes out, that one liner or, a couple of lines that really explains. And of course, the magic again of AI is that, using something like a transcription tool, you'll get that full transcription and you can draw out those nuggets and that is your voice. So that can work really, really well. As I say, if you really just can't quite get to the nub of what you're trying to say, speaking it out and then using those exact words.
I know. And it is such a great thing to do as well, because I'm not a big fan of typing, and my audience would know this by now. Don't ask me to type out a blog. Oh my gosh, I would just sit there banging my head against the screen. But I can talk. I love this. And that is also something that somebody said to me. It's like, well, you don't need to go and physically type out your blogs or your content. Just record yourself, transcribe it, correct the grammar or whatever it is that you need, and you've got a blog. And it has just been the best thing ever. But I still prefer my talking as ever. And the podcasting.
But again, exactly. But that's exactly what we said, right? This is why I love digital marketing. There are so many different types of digital marketing. There are so many different tactics we can try. If the thought of writing, 500 to 1,000 words don't have a blog. That's absolutely fine. Like you say, start a podcast, record videos, even take lots of photos and focus on your imagery. There are so many, and I am so passionate about it's like, do your marketing your way, create your content using the skills and the knowledge and the passion that you have, because again, it'll all come through in that kind of love and care and, as a passion that you have for it. Whereas, if you do, the worst thing I hate when someone says to me, like, I've told I have to have a blog or I should have a mailing list, and I'm just like, right, you've said that straight away. No way, unless we can figure out a way of you doing it, just like you've said, where you transcribe and you chat. Perfect. But if not, please don't do it. Put your energy into stuff that you genuinely enjoy.
Exactly. Oh my gosh, we can talk about this forever, because, as you're talking, I've got so many other little brain waves. I was like, oh, and we can talk about this. And it's like, I think we've given them enough information now. So hopefully for those of you listening, you're feeling a little bit like, okay, I do not have to do everything. Follow my gut, follow my heart, and have fun. I think that's if anything, the biggest message here from Kate is decide what is aligned with you, have fun with it, experiment, get your voice out there. And just see how it's received. But the most important thing is when you have fun, the energy with that content will be received in that way. And we can't always have fun in everything. Sometimes we are a little bit more serious, but that's also okay, because with that sincerity of educating, helping, supporting other people with your content, that also naturally comes through. So either way, just decide what is right for you with your content. And remember, you can have control over it as well. So, Kate, you mentioned that you've got some amazing free audios for us all about content. Tell us a little bit about this.
Yeah, of course. So it ties in beautifully with your summary, actually. So basically, the idea is that you receive a daily audio guide for you to just take a listen to over 4 days. And it helps you to actually uncover what it is that is sort of knocking your content confidence. So we have a little look at limiting beliefs. We have a little look at knowledge gaps, because that sometimes might be something like, I'd love to do reels, but I've got no idea how to do them. Actually taking a step back and looking at where those gaps are, if there are any little business niggles. So maybe it's not so much to do with you, but there's something in the business that isn't just feeling quite right. So it's just a set of guidance to take you through. We do have a little fun with some worst case scenarios and what would you do. And one of my first sort of steps on my pathway to content confidence is consciousness. It's being aware of it instead of just sort of plowing through with that horrible, heavy feeling of doing content. It's just bringing awareness. It's just getting it out, you know, on a piece of paper, reflecting a little on it. So yeah, I invite you to take a listen to those audios and just sort of see what comes up for you, and hopefully uncover some things that maybe just you can just tweak a little or just change a little to make you feel a bit more confident.
I know, and it's amazing. And thank you so much for making those audios available to us all. So for those of you listening, if you're feeling like you just need that little bit of nudge, with a lot of love, respect, and authenticity, and you just want to go through this kind of, how would you say? So it's a weekly video, a daily video. Sorry, I missed that
Sorry,
part.
it's 4 days, so you'll get them 4
4 days.
days in a row. Just yeah,
There
little
you go.
10-minute exercises, yeah, just to help.
Exactly. So it doesn't even take a chunk out of your life,
Yep.
basically, to do this. So what I'm going to do is that link will be in my show notes. By all means, go and sign up for those, because even if it just guides you in a little bit of a direction, helps you with your confidence, or just give you maybe an idea which you were like, ooh, I never thought about it this way. You never know. So go and sign up for those audios. And in addition, if you would love to get in contact with Kate, follow her on social media, check out what she's doing. Her website details are always so there. And if you want to take it one step further and love to have a chat with her, I'm sure she'd be very happy to get in touch with you.
Definitely.
But more importantly, wow, Kate, like I said, I've got so many ideas and so many more questions, but I think we'll leave it there so we don't overwhelm the audience. But I just wanted to thank you so much for coming on today and sharing all these golden nuggets with us all. You've given me some thought as well, where I was like, oh, yeah, I've got to think about a few things now. But I really appreciate you sharing all of your knowledge here with everyone.
Thank you so much for having me. Honestly, it's my absolute pleasure. If I can just make one person's shoulders, you know, like just go down a little when they next post or when they next think about your content, then, you know, job done. So no, thank you so much for having me and for a great conversation.
You're very welcome. And trust me, I'm sure you've hit a lot more people where they go like, oh, I can breathe. It doesn't have to be all pressure.
Yeah, definitely.
Bless you. Thank you so much. And I'll be in touch again soon.